trophy. Yeah, you ain't gonna make it. And then of course the next thing you know it, she's got herself a nice little piece of wood. The boys around the corner chase.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
you get into a
this will be what I'll be working on next week. So yeah, excited all the
yeah,
time.
that
Yeah, this is I think the best move we made was to sit there to just keep meeting here on Sundays, and we're gonna do it till the
yeah,
end.
man. Yeah, use those shots as the teaser. Those are great shots. Okay.
Based on the email I sent you. Hey Jake, what's happening?
Good morning, Kurt. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, what we were just talking off camera, and I jumped us on there and started the record. But yeah, I kind of wanted to do a theme today, and what we were just talking about contributes to the statement I'm going to make. Comic books suck,
Okay.
um, and it's very much in the identity of how do you get to people? Like, how do people get to you, and how do you get to people? And the reason I'm just saying comic book sucks is, maybe the YouTube algorithm will give us a little extra boost because we're trying to say something controversial, which is part of the game. But that seems to be, one of the ways that, in a majority of promoting oneself, moving forward. But, like you were just talking about the what's not app or what not app or whatever it's called, once you get in there, you're locked into it. So it is sucking your time away. And so that's on both sides. The reason comic books suck is the creators have to spend 80% of their week promoting something that they're spending 20% of their week doing. And I'm talking about just the free extra time that you allow yourself. So you still got a full-time job, you still have kids, family to, friends to go and hang with, blah, 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 blah. And you cut, like we're cutting out Sundays from 11, and we hang out till about 1, and do 2 videos to make a comic. But then the rest of the time, I handle our promotions, but I'm only using my Instagram where I'm tagging you, and then YouTube. But that's still time, spent not only uploading, but if you get comments, you have to answer them. You got to try to, it's oh my
Yeah.
God. It used to just be easy to just go get a table somewhere at like even a farmer's market and just put your comic books out, and you get a dozen people that stop and buy a comic book. You might actually get a couple people who are like, you know, fans from there, but it just seems to be so
No,
daunting.
yeah, that's always been the thing. I mean, every time we talk, we always say, "Man, I never have enough time to, pick up my pencil and do comics." And when I, all those pencils I gave you for issue number 1, I remember, having that problem. I had a job. I think I was working like overnights. And I said, when am I ever going to have a chance to sit down and finish this, these 28 pages? So what I did was I said, like people that get a gym membership because they have to trick themselves into getting motivated to work out, right?
Yeah,
So they're like, I'm paying all this money, so this will force me to go, and they do it every New Year's, right? So what I did
yeah,
was I signed up for a comic book course, continuing education at uh, Fashion Institute of Technology, FIT, which is a pretty good SUNY
yeah,
school or CUNY school. Um, and I said, well, I'm just, I'm going to sit there and listen to the instructor, and they're probably just going to sit there and talk. And but I'm going to be just sitting there making my comic, and it was indispensable. I went to that class. The instructor turned out to be this guy named Richard Rockwell, who was the nephew of Norman Rockwell.
No
So he had all these
way.
stories, and he had been a comic book guy and a cartoonist and everything, but he was basically working as a courtroom sketch artist. And like sometimes he said, like, I have to leave, like, when my beeper rings, I have to leave and just like run out, like, and it could be in the middle of class. And he said, so if that happens, that's why. And then you'll see my stuff on ABC News, at night. But yeah, it was interesting. I don't know if he was the most qualified guy to teach a comic book course. So it was one of those things where, a lot of the students contributed. And he went over some basics, and there were some nice kids there. They were all pretty much young college students, and some adults. But I just sat there and finished those pages that you're working on, because I had this process of very meticulously doing the pencil and then going over it again, like a second time, to try to get it nice. So I had to block out the time, and this is why we're doing this right here, right now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd never
Yep.
get progress done, right? I have one more panel
Yep.
here on this page, then I'm on to the next page. So this is how it just kind of plods along. And all of the nightmarish stuff you're talking about marketing and junk mail and spammers, and, like, putting yourself out there, and then you get all these people, like, for every legit follower you get, somebody trying to sell you something, or somebody trying to scrape your contact info and bother you, or
Yep.
phishing scams. And it's just brutal what we're up against. Just everybody's up against in this
Yep.
data
Yeah.
mining.
Yeah. I'm not putting this out as a complaint for me. I don't want to sit here and use our channel as just a poor me, blah, 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 blah. Because I think on another level, I was watching this one YouTuber, and he was being interviewed, Adam Yeater. He does I'll put a link in the below. I've been really watching a lot of his content on YouTube. He's a small press guy, but he just comes out and says basically the same thing. But he goes, if you want to make a comic book, he goes, print on demand, Amazon, and he just puts it down on this very, very very specifics. Don't try to become the king of Instagram, sure, go ahead and throw some things up there, but concentrate on platforms that are actually going to sell you, and I'm actually going to end up getting one of his books off of Amazon. So he was like print on demand. He's not been to a comic book show in since the 90s. And I can back him up. I don't think you'll ever get me to go. And when I say go, that means paying $300 for a table and spend 4 days of your life to sell 6 comic books a year, because they're just not they're not keyed into this kind of content. Independent work. We're not even talking about the racy part of it, whatever classification Turbo Pit Fighter would fall into. But it was a breath of fresh air, which then made me, just get that initial like comic books suck. But I can't go anywhere else. I've tried to just be like, yeah, whatever, comic books. I'll go and do this as an artist. And I do. And then a year into it, I'm just like, oh my God, this is just god awful, boring, repetitive. I think I'm gonna go read some comics.
Right.
And then you go back to your collection,
Yeah, the story.
you pull something out, and you're like, this is what I wanted. And I've done this 100 times. Now, going back to what you were saying about FIT and doing a comic book class, my thing was, I don't know if you remember, but I was a waiter
Uh-huh.
at a pretty upscale restaurant locally. And I would work as much as possible for like 6 to 9 months. I mean, holidays, like starting Thanksgiving and finishing New Year's Eve, I could make enough money to take off till Valentine's Day the next year. So I'd get a month and a half off. Now, that's sitting in my apartment, paying my rent, keeping the electric on, food, beer, cigarettes, paper, pens, bam, and then start working on stuff. So that was how I was still getting a majority of my work
Yeah.
done. But that was that's also a similar thing that you and I have experienced, is other jobs. I was the editor, the art director for a paintball magazine for 3.5
Oh yeah,
years.
right.
Um, and it's, I mean, I was the chalkboard artist for 3 grocery stores. Every Monday at 4:30 in the morning till about 4:30 in the afternoon, I drive to 3 different grocery stores and do their chalkboards and the deli
Yeah.
and the seafood and the produce. Like that's not ever going to go away, and I think that's a great thing. Like being out there, being creative, so on and so on and so forth. But when it lines up with your passion and you're trying to figure it out, which is just really you just want to get it in front of
Uh-huh.
people and just hear what they have to say. It's just even frustrating now that we seem to have this very simple process of like, oh, I posted on Instagram and other people should see it. I don't think so. Um,
Yeah, I
so,
mean, I would,
unless you're
I would
paying
imagine
for
that,
it,
all
booth.
these apps are gonna come and go, and I don't mean like, Instagram's gonna go away, but the popularity of it for the keyword and the marketplace of comic people. It's just going to be one factor in promotion, and it could be like, oh, I found something on Instagram, or it could be, well, I found something at a convention, or it could be I found something from word of mouth, I found something from eBay. It comes from all over the place, and can't really rely on any one thing, and just putting it all together is just part of modern life, where we live in this high tech world, and all of these companies are vying for our attention every minute of the day, including the TV and Netflix and all the other big media companies. So it's really a race for eyeballs everywhere you go, and it's just amazing, how different it is, compared to the old days when we were kids, and it was all about the print comics, the publishing company. It was all about, going to Madison Avenue, knocking on a door, showing a portfolio, getting an editor to hire you. Now, it's we're post the indie revolution and the DIY scene, and anybody can make anything, from your house and publish it, and all these little platforms that are trying to be enable you to monetize your work, or charge for your content. It's something that the internet has been struggling with, micropayments, that is, for ever since the beginning. And the big credit card companies had a lot to do with it, stopping the progress,
Yep.
but
Yep.
I think we're a lot better now with sites like Kickstarter, Patreon, but we still don't have a great way of monetizing your your content. Like, I don't care if you're one of these little cheerleader girls that just does a suggestive dance, and you get like 100 million, you get 1 million likes and views and everything. I don't care who you are, what you're doing. If people are going to your content, you should just be getting cash. And the only middleman should be like maybe a payment processor. But that's not how it works. Instead, we have
Yeah.
like YouTube, and they'll put ads on your page. So now whatever your content is and whatever people like, it's just like diluted by ads, or delayed, or throttled. They put you in a slow lane, unless you're in the fast lane. And then there's memberships where you can pay for algorithms and stuff. And it's just awful because these big companies have still just such a incredible advantage and incredible monopolies, and when it comes to something like Square now, where anybody can buy a credit card processor and anybody could put the technology on your website. um if you charge a small amount for something, you can't say like, all right, I'm going to make a web comic and I want to charge people a quarter. It's not worth it because the processing fees,
It's three
eat up
dollars.
that whole quarter. Yes. So
Exactly.
I mean,
What?
that's always what my question was. Like, I called up, when they all started, I called up PayPal. I looked up, I tried to find out like what's the lowest amount you could charge, and how intrusive is it? Like, do people have to, sign into PayPal, put in a password, redirecting, how long does that take? If we just had, this thing where people just had wallets, and you're signed up with that wallet, whatever it is, Apple Pay or Google Pay or whatever, and then it should just be a click. Yes, I'm willing to pay a quarter, and I'm gonna watch this. I'm gonna read this article, or I'm gonna watch this TikTok, or I'm gonna pay for this thing because this is paid content, and I want to support the creator. That's what we still need. And if we could do that, where people could just charge a quarter for something, and or a nickel, and people just pay it without even thinking, that could really add up, and people could cultivate their audiences and have that income coming in, rather than try to get hooked up with, an algorithm that's going to say, well, most of the people that are visiting you are interested in baby diapers and pharmaceuticals for high cholesterol. I mean, that's an awful way to do things, right? It's like, it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
terrible, but that's where we are. So,
yeah. Well, there are um, better ways of going about this. I don't want to let too much out of the bag. I actually want to talk to you about something off camera.
ooh,
Though,
intrigue.
because I think, yeah, well, I don't really want to start the conversation right now because publicly, because I just want us, you and I, to always maintain the same page, and I just don't want to broadside you with something. So anyhow, but what you just ranted about and the 25-cent thing and everything, I think it's happening and it's getting slowly pushed into places. YouTube is is it's one of these places. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but I want to go after some Google certification um, in really only understanding how Google presents and puts stuff based on meta tags. In other words, if you tag uh, yourself in a certain way, you should come up in that. I do it for my own work and business, and for instance, if you look up original scratchboard art in Google and then go to the image, the image box, where all the stuff, 60% of it is going to be my work because I think I did 165 5x5 scratchboard panels for the covers of the Gardner Francis Fox Library reprint books. And this was all intentional. And, you know, I will also admit that I've probably sold maybe two through that process. In other words, somebody was looking for something, maybe they were into scratchboard or what have you, and they ended up coming across my work and purchasing it. And I think one was purchased through Etsy, and then the other was purchased through my website, kurtbrugel.com. Point being, though, is you can subscribe or join sites now. I don't know the difference quite yet. One of the channels I follow um, has ended up with some restrictions on his videos, so he's not getting ads. And so he is sort of encouraging people to think join, which means he gets, I think he does it for like 9.99 a month.
So it's like
But you get ad
so it's
free.
like a Patreon
Huh?
format.
Yes, yes, but the reward system, this is the problem I have with Patreon. The reward system is daunting. So if you create all these tiers and you got to perform a comic book every month, because that's a tier, it's daunting because I've done I've done Patreon for about a year and a half when it first started, and I couldn't wait to get out of it.
Why do you have to
For
do
that
why do you
reason,
have to post every month? Can you just post it when it's ready?
well, it's based on what you're offering, because you're collecting their money um, uh, monthly, and then it's based on, it's not just based on one
Right.
amount. It could be based on $25 a month because you want
Yeah.
the whole comic
Yeah, I
book
mean
printed, or
that seems like a flaw that they have to charge people by the month. Why can't you just run
yeah,
people's card or run people's account when there's new content?
you're
Yeah.
done. Correct. That's exactly where I'm going, Jake. Exactly. Is there's still, it's like you're the slave to Patreon.
Yeah.
Like you work for Patreon because they want it set up that way because they want to collect the 5 to 10% off the your subs. So it is really tough. So we're going to be constantly looking for uh, you know the best way to keep maintaining our regiment in, let's call it performance. Not only just the YouTube thing here. But obviously, when we've completed issue one here of Turbo
So
Pit Fighter,
what
and
if
then
the creator said, "All right, well, I don't, I'm not on a schedule where I can post something once a month, but I'm going to make my tier, my monthly fee so low that people aren't going to, care if if there isn't something posted in a given month." Do people do that?
yeah, there's the yes, yes, that's the what they call the $1 tip jar.
Right.
So
Right. That
I was in a group that did that, but the weird part is that you can have it come out of your subs. So you could be making $25 a month, let's just say, but you're also donating $20 a month to, other people. So you're walking away with $5, and that's happening to everybody. So the money is just circulating very slowly and around at that point. And then, of course, Patreon is collecting, the nut of it, because out of those $25 and the $20 circulating, um, they're still getting their 5 to 10%. So
how
it's
distasteful it is to, talk about all the, the money and the, the,
well, that turns people off, but we've got to be a part of this,
yeah, I mean,
way of
we,
like figuring it
what's
out
interesting,
and setting it up
yeah,
properly.
what's interesting, and this is where, um, I heard some interesting conversations in the crypto space about revolutionizing. A lot of this is all just vapor, but
Sure.
revolutionizing payments and revolutionizing the gatekeeper systems. So that creators can just go straight to their customers, and there's such an easy way to to get paid either on a subscription basis or on a purchasing platform, and just you go direct to your audience, and I think it still is happening. There still is the promise, there for all the the crashes that we've heard about in the currency, and a lot of people just walked away, including me. you know um I mean, it doesn't mean I'm stopping to make content. I'm just not, I'm not interested right this second in posting it as NFTs and doing all that. But, I'm still making the content, and I'm waiting for the day where, they have the killer app that makes it possible, because, all of the ideas are great, but, they have a couple of big problems. One of the big problems is security, and people getting a crypto wallet and then getting fleeced immediately. The
Yep.
other thing is the environmental strain it takes to mine the crypto, so they really have to get away from that and solve that. Some places are still doing it, some places are reforming. And then, the other problem is wide adoption. It isn't until it's widely adopted and everyone's doing it that you have the critical mass, needed so that it becomes a normal, option among all the different, formats to get content. You just say, I like I like his I like Kurt and Jake's comic. I'm going to purchase it, as an NFT. And as soon as they post their finished comic, I'll buy the online reader, and I'll also buy a digital edition of it, which is like a lifelong thing that I can sell on the blockchain, in 20 years from now. And there's only like 500 copies, let's say. um those are things that are coming in the future if this format pans out like it's supposed to. But the yeah the gatekeepers, the corporate decisions, the pedal on the metal, that it isn't just YouTube, it's also like Amazon. Amazon was forcing creators to cut what they were charging, so that they could be on Amazon. Do you want to be on Amazon or do you not want to be on Amazon?
Yep.
If you want to be on Amazon,
Oh, Etsy did the same thing.
yeah,
Etsy did the
right.
same
So
thing.
all,
They just still do it. Their algorithm will knock you down if you're over $30 and you're not doing free shipping.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, there
and
was a
and this
huge
is
exodus away from that shit.
like a big question of free markets, and should they have the right to do this without some kind of government regulation stepping in and saying, hey, wait a minute, if you have like more than 20 million people on a platform, we should regulate it so that it becomes a public good, kind of like the mail, or kind of like telephones, or kind of like the radio, different communication platforms that fall under the FCC or some other agency. And so far the big tech companies have resisted that, with lots of lobbying and lots of controversy, until it really bit us in the butt in the 2016 election, where you find out all these voter data. The voter data was harvested by Cambridge Analytica, and they ended up interfering in the elections. So
Yeah.
they could do this for anything, and forget it.
Well, good content is good content. Great content is great content. Awesome content is awesome content. Here's where the rubber hits the road for me. How do you get your honest opportunity to go in front of somebody who basically likes the following: black and white comic books, printed in an alternative style? In other words, once again, it has nothing to do with Marvel and DC, Image, Dark Horse. Okay.
Right,
And then the actual content itself is God, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe not time appropriate. In other words, like our book uh, is not was not created in the last year or two. It was created 25 years ago, and so we're in probably very little ways are going to adjust it. We're going to allow it to be because it's just an apocalyptic, escapist comic book. We're not trying to have an agenda. We're not trying to talk about something. We're not trying to lean towards this side or that side on these kinds of things. We just want to make something. You get a hold of it. You grab a cold beer, a glass of wine, an iced tea, whatever, smoke some weed, and sit down and consume it for however long you enjoy consuming it. How do you get in front of those people? Because the data that I'm seeing, in other words, this Adam Jeter, he just hit 1,000 followers on his YouTube channel, which is called Small Press Comics.
Uh-huh.
Like I said, I'm going to put a link down. Um, Power Comics, the same kind of thing, but their views are still around 300, 350 maybe. Um, Jeff Lafferty, he was a part of Comicsgate. He had a big, huge jump. Everybody from Comicsgate ran over, and because he was doing a Kickstarter and was towing the line with them, but he was just doing it nonsensically because it made sense 4 years ago. Ended up getting 56,000 followers. He does a show with another guy, very much like us. They're not working on a comic book together. They're doing their own thing. But he can't get more than 300 of his 52,000 people. So, but having 300 people watch your content because they enjoy it
Uh,
is the magic. And I think right now, the only thing I can say without a doubt is you just keep putting things up on YouTube specifically. Uh, um, but you have an eventuality where somebody mentions. That's why I like trying to mention people I think fall in the same uh, uh, area as you and I and Turbo Pit Fighter. It's not that I'm trying to get them to buy my comic, or someone say or like my video or follow me, but I would hope they would because I think at the end of the game, it's really about uh, um, the environment, the group, the people, the culture, uh, you know, and it's not about comics.
yeah.
It's literally about whatever it is that we're actually doing, which I don't think has a name for it right now, which I know sounds a little weird, but I kind of want to stick with that and keep pushing it forward.
Yeah, podcasting. Yeah, right. I know. Well, many times you've said like, it could be that the how-to videos become more popular than the comic. We're ultimately,
Yep.
you know, we're buying ourselves some time out of our busy schedule every week to make a comic, and the goal is, the first comic, then the second comic, and eventually a graphic novel. But in the meantime, we're making all these videos, right? And we'll see.
Yep.
It could be interesting to some people. It could just be there as a document, so that people will look us up after they see our comic, and they go backwards and do it that way, or it might sit there, and not be that valuable. But the value is us making the comic, and
Yes,
right. And
exactly.
so, and
Exactly.
I don't know, for me, I like, going back to these things and listening to us, because funny
Yeah.
thing about, memory, but I can't remember, the discussions that we get into. It's like, oh yeah, right. Jesus Christ. Like, we got into all these different areas of discussion, and you never know where you're going to go when you're working off another person, right? And the discussion gets interesting. So, um,
Well, we have so many similar interests, and it's always been that way. I don't think we've ever poo-pooed one another on like, oh, Jake, I'm going to do that. Why would you do that, Kurt? I never heard you ever say that. I've actually heard you say, hey, let me give you a hand. Why don't you throw the script my way, and I'll help you
yeah.
kind of hammer out some things. And once again, thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, we're making this comic. I'm still on the page where we're in the battle. We're in the middle of a protracted battle scene. Um, this is Turbo and Trophy Girl here, and I'm drawing this last panel here on this page where she kind of shoves this guy into the fire to kind of like stamp out the fire and absorb the flames, and then she's just going to throw him out the back door, where he takes out two more cyclists, and they're just going to be counting down like how many of these cyclists are left in pursuit of them, so that they can get them all one by one, and be free from their pursuit, and then have some downtime. But
And that's page 8, right?
yeah, let me see. The last page was 7, so I got to mark these things. No, actually, this is page 9.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so I'm gonna write that there, page 9. This was page 8 here, where they
Right.
unleashed those little coil spring egg things. I think we called them what did I call them? I forgot what I called them already. But
Have not.
they
Tumble
yeah,
wires.
tumble.
Tumble
Thank you.
wires.
Yeah, the tumble wires, and so they kind of gum up
Infamous.
their bikes, and so a couple of them are taken out that way. They go flying, and then they throw a Molotov cocktail into the cab, and now that's blowing up inside the cab. Not to worry, there's going to be some flame retardant that's automatically deployed when that happens, because remember, this is in the future. And
In the ice cream truck, by the
yeah,
way, because you don't want your ice cream to catch fire.
well, it could have been rigged later, after Turbo got it,
Right, right,
just to
right,
have
right,
some defenses, and probably it's going to turn out that
right.
Mr. Ike, was the techie
Ooh,
that
yeah.
did all this stuff, and then he's gonna have to repair it all and
Nice.
replenish it all. But yeah, here we are. So she's tossing this Joker out the back doors, and he's gonna be on fire. So I'm trying to do my flailing position, and you know who drew the best flailing bodies in comics? Gil
Who?
Kane.
Oh,
You know,
damn. You're
right? Am I
right.
right?
You're right. You are so right. Oh my
you
God.
know,
Now I gotta find a reference. I gotta find a reference to add in the video if
yeah.
I can.
Oh no,
Well, can
for
you think of anything like off the top?
every time I've ever drawn a flailing body, I've always looked up a swipe
Hmm.
for Gil Kane, and just kind of
Oh my God, I love Gil
yeah,
Kane. I
good
love
angles
Gil
on
Kane.
like people in different positions that are flying, or they're lying about, or else they're like, there's an explosion and they're thrust, outward, and their bodies are recoiling. So credit to Gil Kane. Gil Kane, we should do a spotlight on him one day, but I
Hell
believe he
yeah.
starts.
It'd be hard to pick the book.
Yeah, he was. I think he cut his teeth on the early Flash, right?
Yeah.
And with the first red costume Flash comes out, so that's Silver Age. So it's got to be like that's got to be early '60s when Marvel was just getting going, right? DC
Hmm.
showcase and all that. But then Gil Kane just became one of the best Marvel cover artists, and I think he went to DC, at some point, but I can't remember what he did for DC. Um, and then he, I think he just hauls off on his own and starts making a strip called Shadowhawks or something, and for newspapers, which
Yeah, yeah. He was really a bridge like Howard Chaykin, um, in that they were solidly formed from pulps and the Golden Age comics. But pulps, reading them, the illustrations, the illustrators that were involved, they uh, um, really towed that line. And Gil Kane is almost singularly responsible for, I'm not trying to rub out Roy Thomas, but really giving us Conan the Barbarian, because there's a lot of dry runs in works that
well,
we're
he did
trying
all
to.
covers, really. I don't think there's any cover he didn't do. He did
Right,
Avengers covers, Spider-Man
right,
covers,
right.
even the Inhumans. He would just pick up cover work. Imagine that's your job. Can you believe it? Like, you don't have to do any sequential pages. You're just doing cover after cover for Marvel.
Yeah, but that's the most sought after job in comics nowadays. Most people, that's what I hear, is that what you got to do is you got to get good enough um, to get hired by Marvel or DC.
I don't know if that
Do a good
position
run
exists
of it.
though. Like where anybody's so, universal that you can do, like maybe, 5, 6, 7 covers a month, for all the titles in an entire, publishing company like Marvel or DC or Image or whatever. I don't think anybody like that is even. I don't think there's an analog to that today. You have,
Yeah, but most of the big guys are just doing covers.
yeah,
They're
they're just doing
not,
covers, but
you're
they're
very
they're
rarely going to
doing
get, you're not going to get an Arthur Adams new
right,
book.
right.
He's just going to be doing the covers when he feels
So
like
Gil Kane,
doing the
uh,
covers because he makes a shit ton of money
I'm
commissioning them.
I'm just on the Wikipedia. Gil Kane created the modern day versions of Green Lantern and the Atom for DC, and co-created Iron Fist and Adam Warlock with Roy Thomas for Marvel. So, what
Yep.
ends up being really important, in the trajectory of their careers is what comics were they working on when they were designing the character and the costume and the idea, because that's when you get, some kind of eternal credit, that will always, come back to you. It isn't just like I'm drawing, another Avengers cover. I actually developed a character. So there, he was instrumental in designing the Green Lantern that we know today. The Atom isn't a very popular character. He hasn't really made it to movies or anything. But
Yeah, but that's where one of the injections of Sword and Sorcery is. And that was a comic, that mini series where he gets basically like knocked out or something and finds himself like, i- near a pond and there's a whole Sword and Sorcery world living
yeah,
down there
I
and
remember there was
they ride frogs
yeah
and
there was
stuff. Dude, it's the
yeah there was a
coolest thing
comic
in
called,
the
they
world.
called it the Sword of the Atom.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, thank you.
So so he was actually a Latvian born American artist. He was born in 1926, died in 2000, which I didn't realize. Um, his career spanned the 40s to the 90s. So I guess he did a lot
Yes.
of uncredited, unheralded work before we joined him in the early 60s. Um, he was involved in some of the most iconic storylines in Spider-Man, including the death of Gwen Stacy, the death of the Green Goblin, Spider-Man 96 through 98, which was bucking against the Comics Code Authority because they had a story arc, a drug-related story arc. Um, Gil Kane pioneered an early graphic novel prototype called His Name is Savage in 1968. And he did another seminal graphic novel in 1971 called Black Mark. I have no idea what that
Yes.
is.
I have the paperback, the 5x7 paperback. I got a copy a couple years ago.
Yeah. So his real name was Eli Katz. He was born in Latvia, a Jew, and he attended Manhattan School of Industrial Art, which later became, I think, the High School of Art and Design. No, yeah, I think that became um, the printing comic book. I mean, the printing high school. He started working at MLJ Comics, which would later become Archie. And he says that by the time
Oh, I didn't know
he
that.
was 15 years old, he was going up to the comic offices. Remember what we said, that you just got to go to Madison Avenue and just start knocking on people's doors and
Yep.
just changing garbage
Yep.
baskets and stuff. His
Yep.
first job came at 16 during his summer vacation, 1942. Wow. And he worked in production, putting borders on pages. The letterers would only do letterers, not the balloons. So he would put in the borders and the balloons and finish the artwork, whatever had to be done. And, so he was kind of like the guy that would rush everything to completion so that it was ready for press. Um, a guy named Jack Binder had an agency. I had a loft of Fifth Avenue. He said it looked like an internment camp. There was 50 guys there at drawing tables. You had to account for the paper that you took. Amazing stuff. He first got his job drawing Inspector Bentley of Scotland Yard in Pep Comics in the 40s. And then they gave him a whole issue of The Shield and Dusty, one of their leading books. Again, this was with MLJ Comics. Um, his earliest known credit is inking Carl Hubble on the Scarlet Avenger superhero story in Zip Comics number 14, 1941. Who the fuck knew we were gonna take this turn? And excuse my language. And yeah, so he did. There's a lot of stuff. I wonder if there's a book out on his early stuff. Because I remember he used to draw these figures that were very skinny. You remember that?
Oh yeah. I at one point wanted to be Gil
Oh
Kane.
yeah. What?
I just wanted to be Gil Kane. I could not get enough of his stuff. And you know, the crazier part of it, um, I felt such a kindred spirit to. Um, if you go on Pinterest and just look up Gil Kane page
Right?
layouts, he worked with like a Sharpie
Yeah.
marker on an
Definitely.
eight. You know, I mean, the guy, but he had everything there.
Yeah. No. Later on,
Everything's there on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with a Sharpie
yes,
marker.
when he was doing it, yeah, he would get these. I think they were like paper mate pens, or but he would not use ink and brush anymore, or a dip pen anymore. He would always use markers for his later career, and it showed. His later stuff. I don't think it was as good. I think you lose a little bit of crispness and kind of like classic, aesthetic when you move to marker. But he would not only move to marker, but he used to have a bold marker. I'm sure he had an
Yeah,
array,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
That's my yep, yep,
Yeah, and
yep.
I don't think, and they didn't have these kind of like brush markers back then, which he might have cottoned to. But he found his thing. So his later work to me isn't as good as his, like, I think his best work is the 1970s cover work. Um, it says here his first work, I'm just going to skip ahead, but his first work for Marvel was in 1944. So this is like pre-Marvel. Which didn't really have a company name. They had all these different newsstand names, and Marvel Comics
Right.
was out. Marvel Comics number one, but they were called like, you know, everything, like Publishing Ventures Incorporated, or newsstand offerings, or So he did a wartime kid gang comic, Young Allies, number 11 in March 44, and he was the ghost artist for Jack Kirby on a Sandman superhero story, Courage a la carte, in May 1944. That same year, Gil Kane was either drafted or enlisted in the army. Nobody's sure, and he did time in the Pacific Theater. After 19 months, he came back. This was 45. He was hired by All American Publications editor Sheldon Mayer. So there again is another one of these companies, and you cannot even define which ones were Marvel or not, right? Whether Martin Goodman was
Yeah.
hiring them, or whether it was one of his shell companies, working through a different editor, and then sometimes the content would end up with him anyway, so it was just a very incestuous, muddled world. But yeah, he took on the name Gil Stack, and uh he did Wildcat in Sensation Comics. In '49, he became friends with Julius Schwartz, an editor at National Comics, which would very soon to become DC. And this is where he starts doing his most important work, early work. Um, DC Showcase, Green Lantern, 1959, the first appearance of Hal Jordan as the modern Green Lantern, cover art by Kane. So this is in the 50s. Um, and he penciled 75 issues of Green Lantern. That is a long run, man. I don't know.
So Jake, we're burned over 45 minutes.
Okay, yeah,
We want to keep these things bite-sized because we know these kids have got to get out there and buy some comics and read some
yeah,
comics and check some things out. But before we go, I got a couple little things I'd like to share. I just finished page 17 with my 80% lay-in, but I wanted to show everybody and introduce them to Gopher, which you've been talking so much about in the last like 6
Yeah,
episodes. So here's Gopher,
yeah. That's
everybody. This
the
is
first good
where
look we get.
they meet again. Yep, they meet again, Turbo and the escapee. Uh, um, uh, Trophy Girl and everything. So, but then just to tease everybody for next week, I already have page 18 laid out, and it's a more. Uh, these are your pencils.
Uh-huh.
I always print out 11 by 17. So there's a conversation, obviously, where Trophy she basically, you know,
When she's trying to convince her
shoos
to get in
away,
the truck.
you know,
Yeah,
Trophy. Yeah, you ain't gonna make it. And then of course the next thing you know it, she's got herself a nice little piece of wood. The boys around the corner chase.
yeah, yeah.
So
You get into a
this will be what I'll be working on next week. So yeah, excited all the
yeah
time.
that
Yeah, this is I think the best move we made was to sit there to just keep meeting here on Sundays, and we're gonna do it till the
yeah,
end.
man. Yeah, use those shots as the teaser. Those are great shots.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we're wrapping up this issue, and we're gonna
Yep.
do our Command E number 6, and then we'll be back again next week. So if you're watching this at some point later, you can just probably click on the button, and they'll all be collected there for you. But in the meantime, in real time, we're making these things once a week. So thanks for tuning in, and catch us again. We, sometimes we rant, sometimes we just kind of like cavell over these, classic comics and all these early guys, these inspirations, and sometimes we basically we talk and draw. So tune in for the next one, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just going to thank you if you're watching this video 2 years from now. So thank you so very much. Maybe even 5 or 10 years from now, because we're both we in 2 years. Jake and I definitely will have issue one done, which will have a link, in the description,
Right.
to be
Depending
able
when you're
to
watching this.
go out and get yourself a copy.
You might
Yeah,
be able
but
you might have this
but
on newsstands near you, or or
right,
you order it
and,
off Amazon.
and we're calling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're calling all you guys that make gals that make it out to this point, Turbo Knots. I still have yet to post anything about our classic Turbo Pit Fighter logo on a T-shirt. So I'm trying to get that together. I'm gonna try to get a little photo shoot with the wife holding the camera, so we can start pulling and pushing that and everything, which will be a limited edition shirt. In other words, when we do get the official Turbo Pit Fighter logo, we will basically halt the production of these T-shirts. So if you're a Turbo Knot, and hopefully you're getting to the end of this, and there's a link to get to the thing, get a hold of one because 30 years from now they'll be worth at least 75 cents. So with that being said, with inflation, with that being said, Jake, I can't wait till next week. So take care, and
All
I'll see
right.
you.
Ciao.